Welcome to Ion Franchising, where you will learn the A to Z's of franchising. Hello, everyone, and welcome into another fabulous episode of Ion Franchising. I'm your host, Lance Graulich. Today, we hit a milestone, and for that reason, we might be airing live in a couple of spots right now. And my guest today, boy, oh boy, her hashtag is changing lives. That's her favorite hashtag. Who would not want to go through life helping other people change their lives? She's been a CEO for more than 20 years. She is an author, a speaker. She's an entrepreneur, of course, a publisher. And she's what I call the queen of franchising. And she's the CEO of FranServ, and we're going to hear all about this. And her name is Alesia Visconti. Alesia V, welcome to the show.
Well, Lance, thank you so much. And I got to tell you, that introduction, I was like, who is that woman? But thank you so much for that very warm welcome.
Wonder Woman, you're welcome. Absolutely. So, we'll jump right into that. So you have superpowers here, right?
I do. Franchising is our superpower. I am, although I look like a glamour girl, I am a nerd, man. I am way into sci-fi, science fiction. I have a section in my closet for my capes and my outfits. So absolutely.
All right. Now, so let's go way deep, way back. Alesia, as a little girl, what did you want to be when you grow up, and how did it come that you are the CEO of the world's largest franchise organization?
Well, I will tell you, as a little girl, I was very outspoken. I was one of the kids when you went to kindergarten. I waved to my mom and no tears. I said, "Bye, Mom, I'll see you later," and jumped right into life. That is the truth. That is the God's honest truth. I enjoy jumping in and helping people. Business is a really good match for me, because you can do so much through business, right? You can really help people and change people's lives. I had my first business when I was 20, right out of college. I graduated and got my master's by the time I was in my early 20s. Started modeling when I was very young and did that for a while. But when I got into business, life was wonderful.
So what is it about business? Did you always aspire to be a businesswoman? Was it nothing? You weren't going to be a nurse or a doctor or an astronaut. It was just always business. No, I don't think I woke up as a kid saying that. I thought I was going to be an attorney. Actually thought I was going to be an attorney. And believe it or not, when I was younger, I actually liked contracts, and I still pursued pre-law and contracts. So it was always in me, the business. I just didn't know at 8 years old what that was. But there was always something in it. But yeah, I think the reason I love business is because it does attract entrepreneurial minds, different ways of thinking, diversity in terms of thought, and that is exciting in the world. Love it. So right before FranServ, what were you doing?
As you said, 20 years in executive leadership. So I have always been, well, not always, not when I was 8, but when I got into an adulthood, I have been executive level president, CEOs of a number of different companies. Franchising is my 5th industry. Always in a service. I have to be involved in an organization that somehow benefits people's lives, whether it was employment. I was in the dating space, pets. There is a number of them that I have been in, but it's always to make someone's life better rather than just have business to run numbers.
Got it. So you were a career advisor, helping people, guiding
Yes,
on their career options. Is that?
Yeah. In my very early stages, I was a life and career coach. So again, that's in me. That comes out in FranServ. It comes out in the culture of the company. We have to give back. We have to do things to make people's lives better as we touch them and as we leave them. It's ingrained in me.
Love it. So what was your first experience with franchising, and how did FranServ come about?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. I've been told that it's one of the most unique stories in franchising. I did not come from a franchising background. Never owned a franchise up to then, still don't. never worked at a franchise. However, I could spell franchising. I did have that going for me. But as I said, I was my last one was an executive CEO for an employment. And what we did was we were helping executives climb the corporate ladder, right? So we were working with them to, executive coaching. We were doing recruitment. We were doing resume CVs. We were around the world. We were in 9 countries. What I started to see was corporate America, I'm going to just say it, turn their back on people that had been doing very well. Age discrimination really started to hit people when they were in their 40s and then forget it by the time they were in their 50s. I saw them turning their back on veterans coming back from tour of duty. They weren't given the respect or knowledge. And women coming back from maternity leave. Like all these things started to really did not sit well with me. So I know this sounds crazy, but I was thinking I had 200 people working with me for staff. And I said, we have to do something more. We have to do something for these people. We've been working with them, helping them. Couldn't think of what to do. So I know this sounds crazy, but I did what every human being does these days. I went on Google and started typing things in, right? Careers, helping, jobs, just all the words that I knew. And at one time or another, franchise consulting came up. And I said, well, what the heck is that? Right? I never heard of that in my whole life. And, did some exploratory, did my due diligence, searched out all the different groups, all of that. And I decided to join FranServ as a franchise consultant.
Love it. Love it.
And that's how I did it. Yeah. And you know what that's about, right? So I took to that immediately, helping people own a company. Lance, as you know, right? Lots of people want to own a business, but what happens? They're afraid.
Yeah. And let's get to that. When you have somebody that comes to you as a franchise consultant and they're afraid, how do you get them in a more comfortable area where they can actually make a decision to change their life?
And that's really the key, right? Because that's what stops them. Many times they have the money, they have the, but it's the fear factor. And I have worked with that almost all my life with career transitions and with life coaching. And it's really breaking it down to taking the flashlight under the bed to show there's no monster, right? Because the fear, the anticipation, and it's usually like, if I fail, all my friends and my family are going to say, see, I told you so. You were a jerk for doing that, right? It's the things we tell ourselves that creates the fear. It's not the reality. Franchising, if you follow the system and you find a good franchise, as we know, it's kind of a blueprint. It's you see it over again. You got a long history of doing well. You're going to do well if you follow the system. It's the fear of we're going to make a mistake. We're going to be called out by friends and family, right? It's going to be that I did something that didn't benefit myself, my family, our future. It's the fear. It's an irrational fear. And as a consultant, that's what I did. That's what we teach our consultants to do, as you know, to help their candidates get through that. And I was very blessed. I came into franchise consulting with FranServ in 2014 and did very well, loved it. And then, our founder, he wanted to retire, and I got approached, and he wanted to golf a lot, God bless him. And he said to me, I got approached, acquire the business, which took me, 2 seconds to say yes. What was there to think about? There was nothing to think about. And we wrapped that up in a month. Easiest, fastest deal I've ever done in my life in business. It was a no-brainer. It was just meant to be. But it's crazy because I knew nothing about franchising. I became the CEO of FranServ. And as you know, through my team, superheroes, we've grown to be the largest in the space. So I'm a product of my own company. I don't know. It's a weird story. It's got, the dog chasing its tail. I don't know, it goes around in circles.
No, but sometimes it takes someone that is an outsider that hasn't spent their entire life in a certain industry to be the disruptor. And that's what I know you to be. And, for those that don't know that are listening, I am a FranServ consultant. I joined FranServ, it seems like many years ago. I think it was 5 years ago now. And I'm actually a trainer for FranServ as well. So FranServ is obviously an amazing organization. So Alesia, all the wonderful things you've done over the years, your philanthropy. I mean, let's talk about all the boards you serve on. I mean, you really give of your time and you want to make people, in some cases, whether it's veterans, whether it's working with animals. I mean, it's amazing, all the organizations. Why don't you share a little bit about some of those?
I feel it's a responsibility for human beings to give back and to help others, right? Martin Luther King said it best, the most persistent question is, what are you doing for others? And we all can do something on some level. It doesn't have to be grand, right? So we all give back on whatever level that we can. I'm blessed and fortunate that FranServ can be in a wonderful position as well as myself. So yeah, I created FranAid, which is an arm of FranServ, where we give back time, money, donations to organizations all around the world. And we've done it with VetFran. We were a big donator to Service Dogs of America. They help Service Dogs of America give service dogs to veterans suffering from physical or post-traumatic stress disorders, autistic kids, people who need service dogs to help them cope with stress in their lives. So we're
awesome.
Huge corporate donations to them. We love Freedom Service Dogs. VetFran, of course, I'm very active with veterans. I'm on the board with VetFran. I'm on the board with diversity. I'm helping people of different races, colors, nationalities come into franchising, women, of course. Yeah, there's just a lot of areas that we can do. We were involved in the Australian fires that were destroying koala bears and Wires. The organization is called Wires. We donated money to them, and it was so heartwarming to see the little koala bears all healing, and it was fabulous. See, I get choked up.
I love it.
But yeah, so there's so much benefit to giving back in the world, and I believe that that's why we're on the planet, is to help each other.
And you were also on the board of the International Franchise Association as well.
I'm on many of their committees. I'm on many of their board of diversity. I'm very, very active in the IFA. I'm going to their summer board meeting. Listen, it's a wonderful organization, and we're a group of franchises and franchisees and suppliers, and we're all in this community. And it's wonderful to be around that. It's exciting, and it's a lot of time, but I love it.
I know you do, and it shows. So now that I wanted to make sure we had time for all of the fun stuff you're doing and really meaningful stuff. Now we get to the hard-hitting questions on franchising. A lot of people listening are they're thinking and wondering, should I start my own business or should I do a franchise? I heard franchising has all these fees. So what do you say to people that are on the fence and they're not sure to that?
I love that, because see, I have seen both sides of the coin, right? As I said, I had never worked at a franchise coming up. I had never owned a franchise, right? I started my own businesses. So I was that entrepreneur who started with zero and grew things, right? So no logo, no business plan, except everything I was creating. And, thankfully I did well, but I made many, many, many mistakes along the way that, everybody thinks success is that straight line, you just kind of, straight. And mine, was all kinds of squiggly and, winding road, right?
Looked like a tornado, right?
Yeah, exactly. Up and down, left and right, so I could have had a little straighter line. That's what franchising does. And that is why payment of money, royalties, trust me, you end up paying way more than that through lost time, leaving money on the table, not knowing about market share or untapped markets, things that these brands have spent lots of time and lots of money to research, all that, to streamline the franchisee's success, to make that arrow a lot straighter. Not that it's easy, right? No business is easy, but it's simpler. It's simpler when you're working with the franchise. It's your partnership. Yeah.
So now that you have that person thinking, okay, Alicia, a franchise sounds like it could be for me, but there's thousands of franchises. How do I know which one is right for me?
I think that's what stops a lot of people. We talked about at the beginning, fear that stops people. I think being overwhelmed stops a lot of people. Billy Joel said, too many choices make you change your mind, right? In one of his lyrics in his songs. And I believe that you can get so overwhelmed trying to find the right one, or your cousin Susie said, this is the one that's so great. Or, you're like, oh, I love this food business, but then when you talk to them, no, I don't want a big staff. I don't want to work nights. I don't, so it gets overwhelming, which is one of the reasons why people like franchise consultants, right? I mean, all the FranServ consultants, this is what they do. This is why I call them superheroes.
Yeah.
They really do change people's lives. Asking questions, being their coach. What do you really want long term? What does generational wealth mean to you? What are you looking for? And then helping them take that path, explore, weed out. Weed out is as important as inclusion in this, because it is overwhelming. And I love it because the candidates don't pay our consultants anything, right? Our consultants get paid through the brand. So it's a no-brainer to me. Why wouldn't you use that, right? There's no cost.
I have always been told by people smarter than me, you should resource up, find those resources for you. And the fact that we're free and work one-on-one with people is pretty incredible, I think.
Well, I will tell you something. It is amazing. And I won't say that we're free. We do get compensated, right? We get comp by brands.
Free to them. Free to them.
Absolutely. And I think having knowledge, and you got to remember, I mean, at least for us, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of brands that my consultants are so, are so familiar with them. Yeah. So we get to look under the hood. We get to see what the structure is. We get to understand things. And that's why we can advise, talk to them. Again, it's always going to be the candidate's business, their business. So they're ultimately responsible for picking the one that's right for them and their family. But we can help say, hey, listen, you want to have a big staff. You like managing people. Let's look at these brands. Oh, you don't want to give up your job. You want something similar to these brands. Most people don't know how to even start doing that. Which ones are semi-absent? Which ones are going to require a small footprint, a large footprint? They're not going to know.
Yeah.
And then they stop. And then they kick themselves later in life and say, I wish I had opened that business. If only I had.
You just hit on something crucial that, we're talking about people getting stuck on various different steps here. And the reality is people that have a job and they have some money saved, they don't have a need to quit the job yet. And they're like, well, I don't want to quit my job yet. And they don't necessarily know that they can be a semi-absentee owner. There's probably more brands where you could participate, let's say 10 to 20 hours a week as a semi-absentee owner and keep your day job than ever before, right? I mean, is that one of the trends you've seen really emerge?
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely see that. There are brands, of course, where you have to be all in, but there are many brands where, just as you said, you can be semi-absent. You can hire a manager to run your day-to-day business. There's so many different concepts and categories that in franchising, especially more now, it used to be you needed, $1 zillion, huge space, 1,000 people. The footprint has gotten smaller. The costs have gotten smaller. I mean, honestly, you're at what I always say, your average Joe, your average Jill, right? Can usually get a brand, can usually get a franchise. I mean, as long as they have their credit and their finances, there's a lot of choices. It's not one size fits all anymore, but most people don't know that. Unless you're really around franchising, you just don't know that yet.
Yeah. And it seems like every year there's additional categories added. I think of FranServ even when I started 5 years ago, and all of a sudden the pet category exploded, the IV drip category, or wellness or alternative medicine. It's pretty incredible. I mean, what do you see on the horizon? Look into your crystal ball and share those secrets with everybody. What's coming next?
I love it. And I will tell you something. One of the things that I absolutely love about franchising is you just never know when that phone rings, right? What's going to happen, because there are exactly what you said, categories that I in a million years, I would think of.
Wait, hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. When one of the,
Yeah. Absolutely. One of the things that I love most about franchising is you just never know what's going to happen when that phone rings. I mean, there are brands and categories. I'm a pretty smart businesswoman. I would have never thought about them in a million years, right? I'm like, why didn't somebody think of that sooner?
Yeah.
So it's so exciting for that. And if I had my crystal ball and where's it going to go? Well, I tell you something, I think there's going to be tons of new types of categories that are going to be on the horizon. We see it now. We see what you just talked about. People always want to spend money on healthcare, pets, their kids, their home, parents, things that enrich their lives. Think about the things that we value, right? Technology's coming up. I mean, I need flying cars, right? We got to get on that, But I think all of those things that make our lives enriched, easier, smoother, intensifies the relationship, the communication, the human side it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to continue growing and growing. So the same individual listening that has more of a comfort level listening to your answers is now also wondering, well, Alesia, but my skills, how do I really know? And let me translate sort of this question into, flip it to the most successful franchisees that you and I have seen make oodles of money, build generational wealth, exit for millions of dollars. What do all those people have in common? Because they're from all different brands. What do they have in common? What have you seen over the years from those people?
I think there's a couple things. When it's no different in franchising per se than when you look at successful people across the board, right? The grit, being able to have emotional intelligence, the high and low, right? The highs and lows in business, they're always there. Foresight to expect situations that are not always going to be perfect and to rise above them, right? That's what entrepreneurs do, right? We jump off the cliff and build our plane on the way down, right?
Yes.
So when you look at, and also, following the system, I know that I said that before, but I will tell you, franchisors want their franchisees to be successful. One of the things I love doing is knowing that we are contributing to people being millionaires. I mean, that is a wonderful feeling. So, understanding that you do have to follow the system and, jumping off that cliff, right, which is that first baby step going forward. But we also see more and more people bringing their families into it and also multi-units. And that's a change from years ago. Years ago, it was just a single unit. That's all anybody wanted to have. And now people are planning differently. They're getting into franchising differently because it's affordable, because you can sometimes start off with what we call a 3-pack or a 5-pack, where in the past it was so, cost prohibited. You could get one and that was, so there's a different way of going about success these days.
Yeah, no, I love it. So what do you see coming next in the future? I mean, besides the flying planes, FranServ, we didn't even talk about Franchise Dictionary magazine. That magazine has grown from, not so large to a big publication now.
Yeah, I'm very blessed with FDM Franchise Dictionary magazine. I took that over when it was baby and struggling and suffering. And Rose Mango is my editor and publisher, and I have a wonderful team, just like I do on FranServ. I will tell you something. I know people say it all the time, but I am blessed. This team would walk through fire for me and me, for them. But I will tell you one thing that you haven't asked me about, which I'm surprised, but I know it's because I got Mickey and Minnie up.
I was about to.
You're listening going, why does she have Mickey and Minnie on her backdrop for FranServ?
Yes. Tell us. We know. Yes. I know why, but share with the audience. Where are we going? Yes. When are we going to Disney World?
That's right. That's exactly right. FranServ always has their convention at Disney World. We will be there June 9th through the 12th. of this year, and that's coming up soon. We'll have 200 brands, a couple hundred consultants. It's a big deal, and of course we'll have Mickey and Minnie. So if I don't have them in my podcasts and on my interviews, they give me a hard time. They are like, how come we weren't in the podcast? So I have to make sure I take care of them.
Well, it's definitely a lot of fun. We're committed to Disney World for the next several years.
Yes.
We're making Walt proud. And Alesia, so final thoughts, final words of wisdom. You've shared a lot of knowledge. Maybe you can also dive a little bit into validation, the item 19, because again, these same people listening right now that are still on the fence about franchising, they don't necessarily know that there's a whole disclosure document. Franchising is a rigid process in order to set up a system, go through those 23 items you have to disclose, and get a franchise attorney to set that up for your brand. And then you have the opportunity to do validation with your brands to existing franchisees, I should say. So share a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's why I tell you sometimes if people can get on that past that first step of fear, right? It's an exploratory process. It's not like, oh, gee, I think I want to have a franchise, and then tomorrow you have it, right? The brands don't even move that fast because they're looking at that, at the candidate as much as the candidate's looking at the brand. So it's a process. It takes a week, 6-8 weeks to go through the process. If you need funding, that can take a time too. But the brands themselves are moving you slowly. It's just like dating. You don't meet someone and then you get married next Saturday, right? It's dating, and that's really what the due diligence is. The brands do have, as you know, an FDD. That's by law. That's controlled by the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. So there is, things that are disclosed. You do talk to all the franchisees. They're all listed on the FDD. You do validation. You hear what it's like to be a day in the life. You hear the good, the bad, and you have to remember when you're validating with a brand. When I was a consultant, I would always say to someone, just remember everybody has a bad day. So you may talk to someone who had their manager just told them that they're quitting or something, and then they're like, oh, this franchise is horrible. I wish I'd never gotten into it. Then they hire the new manager. You talk to them a week later, and they're like, oh, this is the best thing. I'm so glad I was in franchising.
Right. So
you have to always listen to a pattern in validation, not the extremes, not one, listen to if they're supportive, if they're there when you need support, if they explain things, if they help you with operations, if they have an advisory board for their franchisee, things like that. If you hear over and over again, no, that's not the one for you, right? So, but it is a process, and I will tell you, the consultants are great because I tell you, there are times I miss being a consultant, but I have all of them, so they were all my children, right? But I really love the idea of helping the candidate through the process, because you learn as you go through. But at the beginning, I can tell you the first time I ever heard FDD, I was like, what is that? I had no idea what anybody was talking about. And I don't know if that I really wanted people to know I didn't know what I was talking about. You can share so much with your consultant. They're just there for you. So I love that process.
Love it. Alesia Visconti, the queen of franchising, CEO, president of FranServ. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you, everybody. And I'm going to say it because I have to. Have a fantastic day.
We all will have a fantastic day now. Thank you, Alesia. Thank you very much for listening today. Please like, follow, and subscribe. This is Lance Graulich. Until next time.